friends, and welcome to the Separated at Birth podcast with your hosts, Katie Martin and Karen Burke-Brown, the podcast where we find alignment in the most unlikely places, proving that lightning can strike anywhere at any time, weaving together a world of middle-age empowerment as single moms, businesswomen, and creatives, finding alignment navigating relationships after divorce, raising kids, building businesses in the creative space, and doing the hard work of unearthing our very best selves in the process and having a lot of mother effing opinions about it. So let's go. We're so stoked to have you here. Let's get into the episode. Good morning. Welcome back to the Separated at Birth podcast. I am your host, Katie Martin, with my illustrious partner, Karen Burke-Brown. And today we have an amazing special guest for you. We have Rachel Murray, all the way from New York City, here with us today. I want to do her justice and give her a proper introduction. So I have my notes in front of me, guys. Well, first of all, she's from my hood. So that is very important to state right out the gate. She's a fellow Clarion High School graduate, just like me. I've known Rachel since I was a baby. She's just a smidge older than me, but I looked up to her my whole life. Our moms were best friends and still are. And we, have watched it. I've watched her. She's watched me throughout our lives. And we've reconnected in the last couple of years and just have been in cahoots on a few projects together. And it's been just such a treat. And more than anything, though, Rachel has always led this massively aspirational life to me. And I've always just looked up to her so much. She, after she was a graduate of Clarion High School, she went to the University of Pittsburgh and became a performer, director, producer. She's literally worn 1,000,001 hats. She was a live stage performer in Broadway international shows, did that for quite a long time, and then transitioned to being the vice president for the USO and did over 400 live performance events, including Fleet Week, and just working with everyone and their brother that you can imagine in the celebrity space. After her time at the USO, she decided to leave the USO to build her own company, and she was the executive producer of a digital series called Internet Takeover Wedding Edition, starring the internet sensation Adley. If you follow Adley, she's a very, very well-known influencer, and she's also the executive producer of Phil Vassar's Songs from the Cellar on the Circle Network, which, if you're not aware, is the network of the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee. And then she has ventured into the world of Formula One racing, and she's president of the Hunter Yaney Collective, which supports another Clarion, just another Clarion vein. His name is Hunter Yaney. So if you're not following Hunter, you should follow him as well. And she is just a mom and a wife and lives in New York City and just has this incredible life. You need to follow her on Instagram. I'll have her tag all of those things, and those things will be in the show notes. But
Rachel, here's your crown.
I just am like, wow.
I'm like, wow. Oh my gosh, what an intro.
She really has done it all and then some, you guys. And I'm just so thrilled and honored that she's giving us her time today. We're going to just talk about being females working in business. We're going to talk about our short haircuts.
Pixies.
Anyhow,
Pixie
Rachel,
power.
Thank you. Did I miss anything? I know first of all, I'll also say this, that before we came on, I asked her to send me a bio because I knew it was it was intense.
You didn't want to miss anything.
and she's like, you don't have to say any of that shit. And so which is just speaks to how grounded and humble and just rooted in who she is, and all of her, everything that she is just speaks for itself. And when you are with her, she always has this beautiful way of making you feel like you're the important one, which I think is such a superpower. So anyway, I love you. Thank you for being here.
I love you too. And I'm so excited to be here. Obviously I love you so much, and you gave the great history of our friendship, but now I finally get to meet Karen, who I've heard so much about.
Right.
And I just love that you ladies are doing this, because you know me, I am all about female empowerment and getting our messages out there and connecting, and you both do such a beautiful job of that. So I'm just so excited to be here today. So thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. Very
So
cool. I'm happy to meet you. It's very, like she said, it's this long list of just accomplishments. And I know you're like, oh yeah, I did that too. Yeah, I did that too. I think it's just a huge testament to your character. And obviously we're just meeting, e-meeting, but looking forward to meeting you in person because we could all learn something from just the tenacity that obviously you carry with you. And it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Karen, that's my word. People always say,
no way.
And I'll tell you that. So, Katie gave me recently the Bold Journal, which I'm obsessed with. And so there is this question that they ask you again and again. What is the one thing you have? My word, every single time I'm like, tenacity. Like
that is amazing.
It is the one thing, whatever all the other things that you have in life, tenacity is like my go-to. It is.
I love it.
But it's more than that.
I just don't stop.
I think what she's got and this is so funny because her daughter's name is Grace, but she's got grace with tenacity. And I think that mixture of being such a beautiful person, she's not gnashing teeth all day long. She's not unkind. But she is a warrior for herself and her family and what she believes in and the people that she aligns herself with. Like, she's involved in this beautiful Broadway show called The Last Match, which just has exploded. Like literally we're like, we're here it is. It's a musical experience. Like literally the people go to the show and they sit around a ring, and it's not unlike any Broadway production you've ever seen. And she's a principal member of putting this whole thing together, and just the innovation that she brings to everything. And I know I can safely speak for these people who I've never met, that that when you have Rachel Murray involved in a project with you, she's going to go to the mattresses for you. Like her word is bond. She will do everything that she promises to do, including getting this old lady a contract with Wilhelmina. Holy crap. Like, I mean,
we did that.
What mama says mama does. Like, it's like unbelievable. This woman, she just has the Midas touch. But I do believe that it is tenacity mixed with grace, because you can't force your way into things. She knows how to allow things to come her way by keeping her foot on the gas properly, I think is the main thing. So that is a gift, because you're just dealing with so many personalities, and I'm sure that working in that echelon of personality is quite the dance, having to deal with that.
It is. I mean, I will say that's one, but that's something that it doesn't matter if you're working in entertainment, doesn't matter like if you're on the performer side or you're on the producer side, or if you're working in business, or if you're working in racing, or it doesn't matter what, obviously I've worked in a lot of different sectors of sports, entertainment, business, whatever, but that is something that you have to deal with no matter what. I mean, would you agree with that? It's like,
yes,
no matter what you're doing, you
They're
have
people.
to deal with
They're
the
just
personalities. People. And, one of the lessons that I learned really early on, because, I'm driven, and also really when I was younger, when I was a performer and then first coming into producing, directing and things, like we're very highly emotional people, right? So I would really take things personally, because that's how it is when you're an artist. You're like putting it all on the line, and everything that you're doing, you're just, because you're your product, right? You're your product. What you're putting in the rehearsal room or the audition room, or when you're producing something, when you're, putting everything in, it's so personal. Again, that's anybody, that works and is a creator of whatever type. You're putting so much in it. So you take everything so personally. And really, like early in my career, that takes a lot of energy to constantly be like looking at, why is this person asking like this, and why don't they see my point of view, and why is it this up? And then I read something one day that just like hit me like a New York City bus. It said, you have to remember, you are not the star of everybody's show.
Right.
I was like, what? I mean, I'm not.
Wait, what?
I'm not. Right. So like, that really just hit me in a way that allowed me to start recognizing, like, hey, I know I'm doing a good job. I know that I'm doing my best. I know that I've had all these opportunities because people see me as somebody that I deliver. I do what I'm going to say. I show up as my best every day, but I can't control how they react to things, right?
I love how
Right.
you put that.
Own things
You
going
just said, or what I heard you say was it allowed me, instead of meeting that reality with great disappointment, you're like,
This
oh gosh,
happened
this
to me.
allowed me to stress less, which
Yeah.
is such a mature way of receiving that kind of aha moment. It's so beautiful. So
Yeah.
We
beautiful.
And
talk
so it
about
just,
perspective a lot, you know, and how you can change your perspective, just take a step back kind of thing. And it's interesting that you know, we're discovering so many things about each other, Rachel. But it's interesting you say that. For me this year, my whole goal 2024 was to continue to take things seriously, but not personally. And so
yeah.
the fact that you had that epiphany, you know, when in your life, it took me till right now, because I too was that same, oh my gosh, why were they thinking I'm doing all these things? I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, that is exhausting. And you're right,
Yeah.
it's not about me, but it's
Well,
kind of the
think
same
about
part of
it.
your,
You're in a performance space. You're there
sure,
to gain favor of the people that you're working for, the audience. You're looking for
your
this
peers.
validation of my performance is good, or I'm this,
Yeah.
I'm showing up and I'm being well received. And so when you don't have that, Rachel has talked me off the ledge when I'm like calling her up and I'm all emotional. She's like, listen, so I feel like I'm still ensnared in taking things really to heart a lot of the
It's
time.
hard.
It's very
It's
hard.
having to take that step back and say, you know what, this isn't about me. And going back to the hold
Or you
on,
can't
control the
control how they are
controllables,
feeling. Yeah.
can only control me, my reaction to things, my attitude, my effort. That is it. Conversation I have with my kids pretty much daily is, hang on, what can you control? You can't control all of these other things. You can only control this. So take a step back. And but it is, you know, we've talked about the whole like being self-absorbed kind of thing. You're like, why am I thinking it's about me? It's not, I like, are you a villain in someone's story? Are you the star of someone's story? Probably neither. You know, like they're probably not even
But
thinking
then
of you at
again,
all.
you might be, because
Yeah.
you
Right.
represent
Right.
something
True.
in
Yeah.
whoever is around you. You represent something. And sometimes, going back to what you're saying, like, you can't control that.
Right.
You know, even when you think that you are, the hero in somebody's story, they might not see it that way. And that's okay too. But it's just really about that balance of, okay, how much power am I going to let this have over me and what I want, really,
Do you
And
think that comes
maybe that's
later
something
though?
we talk
That
about.
did you have that sort of belief or the character and the sort of, you know, balance back then to be able to say, hold on? Or is that something that you feel like you've come into, say, in your 40s or, you know, later in life? That's for me,
Definitely,
I've come into that.
definitely. And I'll also give you a little bit of perspective here for this. Definitely later in my life. Definitely not until where that really happened for me was in my days at the USO. And I get like emotional when I talk about it, because when you're working with people that are so extraordinary and they're putting their lives on the line, they're giving up their family members, their relationships, their lives, their all
Choosing.
we take for granted every day, and you're trying to bring them happiness and goodness. And I'm like, oh, let's do a show with some, some star and some sequins girls, and but you're trying to bring happiness to their lives. And then when you look at the things that I was taking personally as a producer or a director or as a person trying to build a program and a department and all of these things, and then you go and you see people leaving their families for 10 months, 2 years, they're losing, you go at Christmas and you're spending, a week with 2,000 family members who have lost somebody in their family and stuff. It's like,
How do you not take that on?
okay, let's
Right.
just take a breath here and think about what's important. All right. Like it really,
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so even though, I'm so in and committed to the things that I'm doing or whatever it is, whatever random project it is, it's like at the end of the day, we're all here, we're happy, we're healthy, we're together, it's all great. And so anything that happens here is great. It might work, it might not, but I'm going to be here for another day to try whatever the next thing is I want to do. And so sorry, I get emotional. I don't talk about it anymore. So it like kind of hits me. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's great.
But that's a level of perspective that you just cannot get anywhere else. And I will say, like, that time in my life, I am thankful, like on a level that I will never be able to even express to anybody for what that represented for me as a person, as a professional, in my career. There are just so many levels of what that time.
How did that job come to be, Rach?
Well, it's really, Katie, something that we've talked about is that, like, really my whole career, I'm not, Katie and I come from like the smallest, teeniest, tiniest farm town that you can ever dream of, which I love dearly. I love being there. In Western Pennsylvania, and coming up at a time where there was not the internet, there was not Instagram, there were not websites to tell you how to do things and whatever. And I had these crazy dreams. I wanted to live in New York City. I wanted to be a performer. I wanted to do all these things. And I was lucky enough that I just had these magic moments that put me on that trajectory. And everywhere I went, I just knew, like, I might not have all the things that other people have, but nobody will ever outwork me.
Tenacity.
Right? That's it.
Tenacity.
And I showed up like that every day for every job and learned every single thing I can. And I had angels along the way who saw me. As much as in entertainment, you are not seen. You walk into a room, into an audition room with 300 other girls standing in a leotard, and they decide if they're even going to let you audition. It's really tough business. But I had like angels who saw me along the way. And why am I so emotional? I don't know. I guess I don't talk about this stuff ever.
No, we love it.
It's so inspiring, though. I'm so proud of you for gutting it out here, because it's so something that I know these people that are going to be listening to this are going to want to hear. You're inspiring legions of women right now.
So one of my angels is my very dear friend, Ray Kennedy. And Ray was the first person who, when I was like 19 years old, went and sang on a cruise ship for the first time. I'd never been anywhere. And all of a sudden I'm traveling the world and, wearing Bob Mackie gowns. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a star. I am a literal star. I just was
and like, everyone from Clarion, honestly, 15 minutes younger than you, we all looked at her like she was a star, even when she was just living in Clarion, because she embodied that. She knew it. She knew it in her core of who she was, that she was already that. And so when I think about people and their like manifestations, it's like, you have to dress for the job you want. And she, whether she had a Bob Mackie gown on or just shorts and a t-shirt, she had the Bob Mackie gown on. You know what I'm saying? She had the Bob Mackie gown on 10 years before she had the Bob Mackie gown on. You know what I'm saying? So that is, I have to say, from our perspective, being in that hometown with you and witnessing that, it was like, she's gone. She's out of here. She's stratospherically gone. Like, let's just watch. Get out the binoculars and watch this star just go. She had
that. But, so Ray, I started working with cruise ships with him, and I did that. And really, that was how I met my best friend. And we saved up all of our little pennies and moved to New York City together because we met doing that. And that really allowed me to do that. And then, but Ray and I have always had like just this great relationship, whether it was when I worked for him as a performer or when I assisted him. I've done, musicals at theaters for him. And then, you know, we just have had a very long collaborative relationship. And Ray had gone to the USO to sort of help with this program that they had. And there was a situation where they needed somebody to come in and kind of, you know, help out with entertainment for like 2 months. And, you know, we were talking one day and he was like, would you ever think about doing that? And I was like, with you? Heck yeah, let's do it. You know, like I was like, okay, let's figure it out. And so I was supposed to just be there for, you know, 2 months and help them kind of lay the foundation for this program. But of course, you know me, I'm like, you should do this and you should do this and we could do that. And then we could blah, 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 blah. And next thing I knew, they were like, okay,
Here are the keys.
here you are. And 10 years later, there I was, you know, I mean, it just, but it really was because Ray, you know, kind of got me an introduction and in the door there. And then it all just evolved in a very magical and wonderful way. But I will say, you know, why I say I love that so much is that, you know, I feel so lucky, you know, all those things that you see on that paper. I'm so grateful every day of my life for every piece of my career that I've had. But there will never be another job or piece of work or thing that I do that has impact the way that did. Like that entertainment meant something to people, you know, to ourselves, with the people that I worked with, to my colleagues, to you know, to everyone that was in that world, and to the service members and their families all over the world. It was, I can't say enough about what
was that difficult to transition out of then? If you're still so emotional about it and you were emotionally attached, obviously, was it difficult to move then out of it? Do you feel, I mean, you can look back on it obviously with just such love and thankfulness, but was it difficult then to kind of leave that?
It was not. I mean, okay, that's not true. Yes and no. I was ready to go because I had aspirations of things that I wanted to do. And they were just things that even though like the breadth of the things that I got to produce and work on there was extraordinary. It's a kind of even though there's all different types of things, it's a very specific thing. And there were just things I wanted to do and that I wanted to accomplish. And I couldn't do that there. And I just, you know, it was hard because, to tell you the truth, I could have probably sat in that job till the day I retired and been like, this is great, you know, but it's just like, you know, you have that little drive in yourself where you're like, I just want to do this thing. I know I can do it. And
just ready for another adventure.
Yeah, I just was.
And your foot was still on the gas.
Yeah.
Like you say, you know, foot on the gas.
Yeah. But it was scary. It was very scary because that was, you know, an incredible job with a, you know, world-class organization, working with like the biggest talent in the world and the biggest companies in the world. And like it, and so it was scary to kind of leave and be like, oh, hi.
But that again just speaks to your like unshakable belief in yourself, and you have this, there's an inner knowing that you're meant to do something else. And like, I think so many women, especially out there, don't listen to that inner voice that says it's time to take the risk and walk through a new door. Even though this door is the buffet here is great. You know what I mean? Like I might walk out and starve, but I know that I need to walk out. And that is a very courageous move to make.
Well, I think Katie,
doing what's like always safe
that we've talked about is, and especially like, again, I'll refer back to like our hometown, like definitely listen, it was not all like everybody thinks Rachel's great. Everybody thought I was literally crazy. Like people were like, what is this girl doing? Oh my God, Rady, what is up with your kid? She's like, you know, going on cruise ships and she's moving to New York and she's just like, you know, they're like, what? I mean, and Katie says she was like a gypsy. I was and am a gypsy, like all the way. But it was just like, I just own it. Like I own it and I know it. And it's like, I think that's the thing that we all struggle with, is that like, all the noise, all the voices around us, the people saying, you can't do this and you can't,
You
it's
have
the
to have the
fear.
skin to be misunderstood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And it's
do.
like,
And
you may not see what I'm creating now, but you will eventually. And so
yeah.
you can misunderstand me at this moment. And I definitely felt that way a large part of my life. You know,
Mhm.
my parents are so old school. Like they both had one job their whole lives, like one thing, one career, stayed in the same town, never moved. They're still there. You know what I mean? So they have a very one lane,
Safe.
very safe, and they wanted that safety and security for me, and that was
Yeah.
from the place that they were speaking was a place of love, but it was this exhaustive, like, oh, what's she doing now, like what is
Because
she up
they
to
don't
now?
understand it.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
don't, that's not how they're wired. They
Just
don't
jump.
get the fact.
For me, I was climbing the staircase, I
Mhm.
wasn't restless and couldn't commit to things. It was, oh, this is now leading me to this door. Now I'm walking through this door, and then that led to the next door and the next door. And so, I've Rach knows that I've looked up to her my whole life, and I think her her life, it was like a permission slip for me to
Mm.
be like, it's going to be fine. You can do this. Like, I haven't done it to the scale that you've done it, but I have to just say that watching you, and it like gave me this, you're not alone in this. Just keep listening to your heart and go for it. So.
But I think everybody, thank you for saying that. That
Mhm.
is, I mean, that's so touching, especially when, you always feel like people think you're completely bananas.
I
Which
didn't
is
think that.
still to this day, like people just think I'm crazy, but it's like, I just go with it and it's fine. But it really is just, it's just a challenging thing to allow yourself to take the risks for the things that you really want. And Katie, everybody's got their own path. Mine is centered on the things that I do. Yours is centered on the things that you do. Look, I mean, both of you, look at the incredible, communities that you've built here where you have a voice and you're connecting with people and giving them permission to feel okay to do things. Like to turn the tables for a second, I will say, um one of the things that is definitely challenging about the worlds that I work in, they're very male dominated. Every
Mhm.
single, whether it's entertainment, whether it's USO, military, racing, whatever it is, it's just a very, very male dominant worlds that I operate in, which is why I'm always like, girl power, right? Like I'm very into that, but it's because finding out how to navigate that in a way where you are taken seriously and heard, that's really a trick for women. It really is a trick. And I'm not going to get into like a whole preachy thing on that, but it is tough to allow yourself to kind of be who you are, but also be taken very seriously. And, you know, with Katie and I in our friendship over the last couple of years, one of the things that I am so appreciative of is that, like, on social media for me has always been something where I'm like, I'm there, but I'm also kind of hiding because I'm like, people have to take me seriously for this thing that I do and this thing that I
Right.
do, and they're coming to me for this. And
It's a
like,
fine line.
and my DMs every day are just like, pouring in with all these things, and I'm like, but I'm afraid to put myself out there in that way because what if people don't take me seriously and stuff. And then I just sort of realized that, like, if I'm saying all the time that, like, this is who I am and this is what I do and whatever, like, I have to embrace that. This is really that's who I am. Yeah,
Right.
I will sit and, have my coffee in a Barbie sweatshirt like I did today, and then I'll go work on a multi-million-dollar deal after we get off here. Like that's
I
what
think
it's going to
it's
be. And I, like, if you like can't dig me because I also have that kind of part of myself, well then, okay, I just have to
That's
figure
real
it
life. That's
Yeah, you're
real
allowed
life.
to have a life
It's
outside your career. Yeah.
out.
It's interesting.
And
I recorded a podcast. I was a guest on a podcast last night. Karen, we'll have to have these dudes on. They're surgeons. I sat next to this guy on a flight, and he was like, "You should be on my podcast or whatever." Like, this is like a year ago. they're shoulder surgeons. And I'm like, what do you want me to be on your podcast for? Like, what the fuck am I doing here? But it was really amazing because it's like, here these guys are that are like working on someone's shoulder, a lot of some professional athletes, whatever, but on the other outside of their surgical lives, they want to sit down and shoot the shit with each other and like have a good old time and
great.
talk about like dumb shit and but important shit, you know what I mean? And it kind of was so beautiful that they were like, we don't have to be in a suit in front of a board of medical professionals to legitimize ourselves. We can let our hair down a little bit and talk about the bullshit TV we watch, or you know what I mean? And it was so refreshing and fun and not intimidating at all. And I think I was like, I kind of just wanted to say, God, I'm so proud of you guys, because the people that are your patients probably love seeing the human side of you, that you're just like everybody else and you have
most of those guys
humor.
have terrible bedside manners. And,
no, they were so fun. They were so
surgeon,
fun.
like that's just what you are. That's what you are during the day. This is what I do. This is my career, but it's not who you are necessarily. Like, I guess if you live and breathe, the inner workings of your body, that's one thing, but there's no depth there. That's cool and very interesting, but there's no, like, what do you do outside of that? Can you fly fish, or can you talk about, tying up?
I just think everyone's so voyeuristic. We want to see behind the curtain.
Yes.
But I
so
think
much more
there's a very interesting point that you're making here, Karen. And I'll say this because this is why this is resonating with me. This has been something that I have struggled with, and that this year in particular, I'm really making an effort to be aware of this and separate these things, is the difference between what you do and who you are. Not letting the what you do be who you are. Like being completely defined by that thing you do, by your job and your career and your all of those things. And I think that is like definitely in the entertainment world, everybody struggles with that because we all feel like defined by what was the last thing you worked on, right?
Yeah, the role you play. Yeah,
that's right. And so
you're only as good as your last role, kind of thing.
That's it. That's it. Oh, you did all these years of what? Oh, what? But you haven't had a show in 4 months, right? So everybody feels very defined by that, and I feel like for a lot of my girlfriends and women in particular, feel really defined by like, oh, I had a conversation recently with a friend of mine who was a stay-at-home mom, and she is like a freaking star. And she was fortunate enough that she had the opportunity to stay home and be with her kids. But like, there's an insecurity there because she wasn't doing this or that or whatever. And I'm like,
that's a hard job.
Gift. It's the hardest job, number one.
It is.
And you had the greatest gift of your life to do that. But again, it's that sort of like being defined by these sort of outward things.
She could allow that to make her feel an inferior in a moment where she would be in front of people that would have been asking her about her career.
Yeah. Oh, you don't have a job? Oh, you just stay at home?
Oh, you've been just
that's a 24-hour-a-day job, actually. Yeah, it's very difficult. Very difficult. And it's a privilege. Really, I don't know anyone anymore that can to that. It's definitely a privileged thing where you have someone, a partner that can provide that privilege to you. It's a big deal because it's unheard of.
It is unheard of.
My biggest takeaway from everything that you've said is you can do whatever you want. I think we get so stuck in sort of this tunnel vision, or, well, like Katie's parents, this is the job I've done. And I fall into that too. We've had this discussion about my career and that kind of thing. And okay, what's next? I'm like, oh, I just need to, but knowing that people forget that you can do whatever you want. I don't care if you're a girl, if you're a guy, the sky's the limit. Push the gas pedal. And I think, that's a testament to you, to your drive, to your tenacity. It's people, I think, forget that. And I have that conversation with my kids. You can do whatever you want. You might not be able to be a pilot because you're too tall, but you can still, doesn't mean you can't be in aeronautics or,
Mhm.
learn to, you can't be a commercial pilot, but or, maybe you can't be in the Air Force or something, but really you can do whatever you want. And your career is a testament to that. Like,
Oh,
okay, well, I'm going to do the next thing, the next thing. You didn't just park at the USO, even though it was, one of the greatest experiences of your life,
mhm.
personally, emotionally, all of those things. But you still moved on and you're still creating new things, new aspects, new everything to your career. And you're like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to try Formula One. Like, what?
That
Like,
I know.
what?
People are
That,
like,
like,
what?
wait, that was not on my dance card. Wait, you know what? Formula One, that, like, how did that come to be? Did you knew someone in that? Like, that's not, I mean, sure, it's entertainment in a way because it's, the marketability of all of those things now. It's definitely sort of a cash cow in, oh wow, NASCAR. And now they notice that they have so much more women followers than they ever have.
Yeah.
And just the fans and people who travel with the cars. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting to me. And
Yeah.
so it makes sense that, you come in and you're like, hold on, let me just dip my toe in and actually show you
Let
how
me
to
just
do
put the
this. So I'm
Rachel Murray
fascinated by that.
stamp on all this Formula One
Yeah,
business.
it's very
Okay.
interesting.
So here's how that thing happened. I'm going to give you a little bit of background because it'll help you understand why it works a little bit. So one of the things that was phenomenal. I just made up a word.
Write that
It
down.
works.
Write that down, people. Write it down.
See, I clearly am actually a genius, Karen.
I see
All
it.
the swearing came in handy. So here's the thing. One of the things that was really fabulous about working at the USO was the fact that it is a nonprofit. A lot of people think they get all their money from the government. They get zero money from the government. It's a nonprofit. So, whatever it is that you want to do, you have to raise the money for it, right? So
Wild.
and when we work there with really Fortune 100 companies, the biggest companies in the world. And so everything that we were doing, we were working oh, we want to do these concerts at Fleet Week, and we want to do this thing on a ship, and we want to have Katy Perry do a concert at the Brooklyn Navy Yards, and we want to do this and that. Okay, great. But you have to raise the money for it, right? So when I was there, I really learned how to create those entertainment partnerships and how to have a big partner and how to make a mutually beneficial partnership, and really understanding how to look at metrics for measuring impact, and all of these great kind of pieces that as a producer before that I was like, I didn't know any of that, right? So I really learned about all of that. And then I also had the opportunity there. USO is, at that time it was, I don't know if it is anymore, it was one of the top 5 most recognized brands in the world. Not just nonprofits, but top 5 recognized brands. And they decided to do a brand refresh. And I was really lucky because I was operating what was the most, public facing entertainment asset that they had at that time. And, we were just everywhere. I mean, on every network and on every show and in Times Square on New Year's Eve and all these things. So as they were doing the brand refresh, I was lucky that I got to be, with the world headquarters, part of those conversations and really understand messaging and, hear the conversations on how they're building. That was a 2-year process. And so really got to sort of learn all of that. So those 2 pieces were incredibly helpful on that kind of other non-creative side. And then when I started producing in TV, when we did Phil's show in Nashville, sort of understanding, and I will say also this was at USO, but also on that show, really being in the kind of PR side, and then doing the branded partnerships, the integration of those into that show. And then with Adley's show, which was, just an incredible project, but, doing the brand collabs for that project as well. And then really starting to understand what social media was and the true power of it through Adley, because she is a genius. I will tell you, people are like, oh, weirdly, she's so fun. She's doing all this crazy stuff. And she is. That's her natural personality. She's really like that. That like that big, bubbly, crazy personality. That's how she is. But she is a genius. So kind of seeing what all of that represented and how we were building this digital prototype for this concept of this show with her digitally, I really got into understanding the impact of that. So it's really those 4 pieces that allowed me to come into the formula racing world. Okay. So that's the background. So then Katie and I have a friend who actually I've known since I'm 5 years old. We started Sunday to school together at 5 years old, that I've known my whole life. His name is Bob Yaney. So if this friend of ours, we grew up together, and then sort of like at the same time that I left to go pursue my dream of being a performer, he went and became a Navy SEAL. And
oh, wow.
the most elite, fighting force in the world. And he was on Team 6, and then, went on to have this incredible career. And,
wow.
he, started a defense contracting company. And then he has this child that had this love of racing. And as he's going through karting and, gets into the car, etc., he becomes the youngest ever Formula 4 champion in the world. So Formula 4 is like sort of like a regional type thing. So like there's one in China, there's one in the UK, there's one in Europe, there's one in America, they're all over the world. And he was the youngest ever Formula 4 champion, which put a lot of attention on him. And then he was invited to go and work to drive in Formula 3, which is one of the feeder series for Formula 1. And why that's important is that Bob had the wherewithal to kind of recognize that kind of in every sport now, but particularly in that sport, those athletes, it is a level of elite driving and competitiveness that there's just nothing like it. I mean, in all between Formula 3 and Formula 1, there are only 70 athletes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I mean, more than that on one football team.
53 people on one football team. Think about that. So this is how elite this sport is. And Bob really realized also it's just, the money that's involved in that sport is just other level. So we would have these conversations about like, what do you think about this thing with branding? Or what do you think about this with social media? Or I'm trying to think about this thing. And like, he knew that he wanted to build this structure around Hunter to help him and support him get there. Because as a side note, there have not been any American drivers in Formula 1 since the 1990s. Till last year.
Wow.
Until
last year. Katie's big into racing, and I'm sort of just, getting information on it. It's very interesting. And I'm a fan.
Fantastic sport to follow.
I'm so like far removed, but I know Katie and I have discussed it before. So that is news to me, but still fascinating.
And why it's particularly interesting is that Formula 1 was purchased by an American company, called Liberty Media several years ago.
Okay.
And, so they own like Sirius and the Atlanta Braves and, all these kind of brands that everybody knows. And it really was at the time they came in. Formula 1 was very closed before they came into that world. And they sort of realized, hey, if we want to get the American market on this ride, this is going to have to look a little bit different.
Yeah.
They really made this incredible effort. It is extraordinary what they have done to not just elevate the sport globally, but particularly in America. It is unbelievable, with the Drive to Survive effort. That's really like when you're talking about how many women and stuff love it. Everybody's like, the drivers are now
created
stars.
a fan base in America that could not have been created otherwise, I think.
That's right. And so anyway, Bob really recognized that, it's Americans don't really know what's going on with the sport. They know
it was a European mostly followed sport.
Right.
And it was a rich man's sport. It was a very cult.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But I mean, even in the people that were following it, even the fan base at that time was still just the elite Monaco yacht loving.
Right. That's
elite.
what you think of. That's the picture in my head is just this, the French Riviera, it's so far removed from, from sort of our day-to-day reality. But, I did not know that they were purchased by that media company. That makes total sense now why.
Well, I have to say
here.
my again, fringe witnessing of this, because I know Bob, I know Nicole, his wife, we graduated high school together. So it's all very, just from our roots is
Sure,
this
that's
triad
rad.
of like, I know Bob, I know Rachel, whatever. And I had followed Hunter too, since he was a little karting guy. And I remember being on vacation with friends in North Carolina, and I went to the little kart area, the like kart track. It was like a GoPro Motorplex in North Carolina where he was karting as like a 10-year-old or a 7-year-old or 8-year-old or whatever. And I'm like, you're going to put your kid, and I was like, Nicole, you're putting your little kid in this like death machine. He's 8. Like, what are you doing? She was like, I know.
Like, and just watch.
Yeah. Now he's in like a rocket, and he was 15, didn't even have his regular license, to drive on the roads. And he's winning these championships in this literal rocket, just strapped in like Wile E. Coyote. But Bob said to me, but way back in the day when he was karting, because even at that point he had like merch, he had hats, he had shirts, he had a logo, he had, all, and he was like, I have to build for this kid. You think about like, I'm like, oh, I'm taking my kid to lacrosse. My kid does not have merch at his like lacrosse game, but Bob knew that if he was going to build him as an athlete, the recognition of Hunter Gainey, he had to build this brand, and bringing Rachel in on the building of the brand was like chef's kiss, the perfect like collaboration, collision of talent, of vision, plus someone that knows how to execute that. And so
love it.
And also I'll just plug Hunter from this perspective. His dad's a Navy SEAL. At the start of his career, all of the sponsors that he had on his car were all veteran-owned businesses. So all the stickers and things like that were on his car were all like,
wow.
He is the darling of America, in my opinion. And if you are not following this child on his journey to this dream of achieving one of 20 spots,
like, hold on, am I following this kid?
Like, it's such a high level of athleticism and I mean, every time these boys get behind the car, it's like life or death,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'll tell you, going back to what you were saying about him not having his license. So he just got his license last year.
It's so crazy.
Funniest days. This is hilarious.
Gosh.
They're driving, Hunter's in Europe, Bob and Hunter are in Europe. And I'm talking to Bob. It's one of the days, like it's a race weekend and they're testing. So, he's on the track, he's driving, and like, he's telling me how he's like in one sector, like he drove, like he set the time in the sector, he's going the fastest. So like, he's going like, I don't even know, like 170, 180 miles an hour, whatever it is. Like he's killing it, blah, 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 like totally blowing out the sector on this day. We're like, so happy, whatever. And then later that day, Nicole texts me and says, ask me something about something happening with his schedule because he has to come home and she's trying to schedule his driver's ed session so that he can get his license. I was like, this is hilarious. Like, what is this? What is
Are we in the
dichotomy?
same universe?
I feel like someone needed to put like a GoPro camera inside the like driver's ed test with the driver. And you remember that television commercial that they did for Pepsi? I don't remember which NASCAR driver it was, but he like was like trying to test drive a car from like a car lot.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. That was genius.
He had like a beard on and a disguise on, and he goes to a car lot and he's like, can I test drive this car? And the test driver guy gets in and he's got his coffee and he's like, okay. And he just peels out and like does all these crazy,
was fantastic,
like donuts and stuff. And then he like takes his beard off and it's this, I don't remember which guy.
I cannot remember who it was.
Anyway,
I'm with
and
you.
he was like
a
NASCAR driver, and the guy was like peeing his pants. He could not handle like how fast this guy was going and peeling out and doing all these amazing tricks with the car. I'm like, Hunter should have done that on the day of his driver's test. I'm just taking that guy for a ride.
Fantastic. Such a great idea.
So,
Rachel, make that happen.
I'm sitting over here like, we're always planning his content, his things.
For real, right? That's the content.
Yes.
I'll tell you
awe.
One thing about Hunter, that like when I talk about him, I just have to say this, Katie was mentioning that it's like, his dad's a Navy SEAL and things. And I'm always happy to be able to talk about Hunter in a public forum because, you know, again, it is the most elite sport, but not just because of the athletes. It's like really most of the people that are driving there are, you know, the sons of billionaires, and you know, they have parents that are actually buying a whole team so that they can have a seat. And you know, it's like what it takes to be there financially is just it's extraordinary. So you know, one of the things that is incredible is that Hunter, he really truly is like our little Rocky story, because you know, his dad's a veteran. Like he's not coming from a family of billionaires who are just
not a
writing
Vanderbilt.
and
Yeah.
buying. And so, you know, that's why like we, you know, we work really hard on our sponsorships and everything that we can to build him and build his fan base and build awareness and get America interested in what he's doing and in their story. Because I'm telling you, this kid, when I first met him, he was turning 16. I mean, not met him, but started working with him. He was turning 16, and like the determination that this kid has, it's like, I mean, I relate to it because, you know, I had that kind of like, I will not be stopped with the things, again, the tenacity theme. But he's just an extraordinary kid. And again, not just that his tenacity, but you have never met a more pleasant, happy, kind,
so pleasant,
engaging, like
love
he's
it.
just an extraordinary kid. And I just
so
feel
coachable,
really
like
lucky
so willing to do
to work with
anything you
him.
ask. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
What's that like?
he's a doll. He is a doll.
A 16-year-old that's coachable. What's that like?
Yeah. Yeah.
He really is
I guess, you know,
incredible.
when your dad's a Navy SEAL, you're kind of like fall in line.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You were groomed very well. Rachel, tell everybody where they can find you. Like what can we plug for you? Can we plug the last match for you? Can we plug what are the things that people should be like looking? We're going to write them in the show notes and link everything. We'll obviously link Hunter if there's somewhere someone can donate to his cause, a Kickstarter, something
Great
like
idea.
that. We can plug that. Yeah, tell us all the amazing things.
So if you want to follow me, I'm everywhere as MyFabNY. That's my little thing. I live in New York City. I'm a New York City girl. You know, have my little country heart, but I've been in New York a long time. And you know, so that's where you can find me and talk to me, and you know, where I talk about all my fun things. But you know, obviously there's Hunter. You can follow Hunter at Hunter Yaney on all social platforms. You can go to hunteryaney.com to his website. You know, you can go to YouTube. We have an incredible piece, which we're going to move to the website, that is like a little documentary, a mini doc about Hunter and his journey that's really compelling and beautiful. And if you want to know more about Hunter, you can just reach out to me. You can always reach out to me on socials, or, you know, via the website. And we just love to talk about him and, you know, what he's doing, get people involved. But I do have to say, the thing that I'm so excited about is the last match. I really want to talk about the last match because the reason that I love this show is it is so unlike anything that has been produced in entertainment. It really is a true marriage of the professional wrestling world and theater and rock and roll and great storytelling. And it was
fun.
I was so excited to join it, is that it truly is not like anything. And I will tell you, in the theater community, people are very standoffish because we don't go into a proscenium theater and you sit there nice. It is like people come in just like they go to a wrestling match, and they stand around and they chant and they scream and they yell and they have a big time. And you see everything from little kids to, you know, elderly people and husbands and wives. And like, you know, one of the greatest stories.
They're just invested.
Interactive. And people are like, theater people, once they go, they love it because they're like, oh my God, I can scream. Yeah, you know, they're like chanting. And you know, there's this great clip at the first time we presented the show of the whole audience chanting, "This is awesome." Like, but
I want to see this. I
but
want
the
to go.
thing that has been amazing about it is that it is the show that everyone has told us we can't do. They keep telling us that we can't do it, that it won't work. And the only reason that it has continued is, I'm going to tell you 3 little examples. when we did the concept album and we released the concept album and we had this little concert at this venue called the Cutting Room in New York City. We were like, oh, it'd be so nice. Like our friends and family can come and like listen to the thing, whatever. The whole venue was sold out. People were standing shoulder to shoulder, watching it on a screen in the lobby.
Wow.
Zero marketing dollars. From that, we got the opportunity to actually produce the show at White Eagle Hall in New Jersey, which was incredible because we had one of the biggest, wrestlers, the indie god himself, who used to be at WWE, Matt Cardona. We had the male star of Funny Girl, Ramin Karimloo, playing Ben Vengeance, Amber Ardolino, who's currently starring in the Neil Diamond musical on Broadway, was playing the female lead. It was a whole, host of professional wrestlers and these incredible stars and this rock and roll score. And we were like, we've got to do the show. We've got to do it. But again, we were like, we don't have any money for marketing. So we're just going to put it on our little Instagram account and hopefully some people will come, but we'll shoot it so we can make a sizzle. Well, we did 2 shows, both of them sold out. People wrapped around the block. The fire marshal made us not let anybody else in the building. We turned 2 blocks of people away. It was the fans. They wanted it. So then we did it again. And it was the same thing. And like you can see on our Instagram, it's like when we released the concept album, over 1 million people. When we have the first big video from the show with Ramin and Matt, like over 6 million views with nothing. We have no marketing dollars. We don't have anything behind us. And what's been incredible is the fans just keep coming for us. They're just like, do this show. And so by the time this is out, it will have been announced, which is going to be later today, that we are doing a tour. We're starting a small tour of the show this spring. And so we're just excited because people want to see it. Yeah. And we're going to bring it to them. And
that's fantastic.
I'm so thankful to the fans because we don't have any of the things that a regular Broadway show has. Oh, and I have to say one more thing. We didn't even have an actual run of this, but we were nominated that year that we produced it for 16 Broadway World Awards against some of the great regional theaters around. And we were not 16 awards in 11 categories. We swept the whole thing. So it's just been this magic little incredible
it's magic.
And I just love it. I love it.
We have to go, Karen. Let's fly to New York and go see it whenever it's out again.
Yes.
Let's go.
You have to.
That's like this little grassroots, show that just picked up some steam. And I love that. I love that kind of thing anyway, where it's all just fan driven. It's just word of mouth.
It's just the same thing that you guys do. And that what I love about social media and these things, it's the communities.
Yeah.
It's that wrestling community. It's our communities here. It's the communities that come together for the things they love. That's power. And that's what's great today. I'm just going to say this one last thing. Lord, I can talk, can I?
I love it.
We all can.
That I love about social media and these stuff. It's it democratizes opportunity. Look at what you're doing. You don't need to wait for NBC or whoever to tell you it's okay for you to come on and talk to women or talk to people that you want to have
do what I want.
You just do what I want. That's incredible.
I say that all the time. I do what I want.
It's interesting, listening to that whole, the psychology of what you guys were talking about having day jobs and having to answer to the man, essentially, because that's what it really is. Both of you guys have had to do that so often in your lives. And I did not go that route. I always worked for myself. I have definitely felt the imposter syndrome and all those things, but I always, even when I'm coaching people on my Saint team, I'm like, you are not Saint. Saint is not you. You are you. What is your brand? What matters to you? Take what matters to you and go build a community based on what matters to you and find your people. The more you put that out there, the more will come back. My relationship with Karen, where we are right now in this moment, is evidence of that. She found me for the haircut, stayed for the rest. So I cannot preach enough about the fact that community, going into that space and building that for yourself without any fear of because whatever it is that comes out of your mouth, the people that are meant to find you will find you. And that can lead to a lot of opportunity that you don't have to fear being yourself. The more yourself you are, the better, because then the accuracy of what comes back is so good. But it has to be a two-way conversation. I tell people that all the time. It's like, if you go on your social media and you just talk and you don't listen, then you will never build community, because people have to feel seen on the other side. And so there has to be a connection that's made, because I think in this world, we are slowly losing our connection to one another, the more connected we are to this. And so how can you be both? How can you continue to create connection here without losing the human connection of what matters most? And that is being yourself as much as possible, unfiltered as much as possible. So,
well, it's called social media after all. It's like social. People forget that, wait, I can't just post and never actually engage with people.
And doing a live is terrifying for so many people, because they're like, what if nobody shows up? And I'm like, well, if you have 5 people show up, you hang the disco ball and you have a fun party with 5 people. If 500 people show up, now you're having a banger of a time. But it doesn't matter like how many show up. You have to just connect with what shows up. And that's beautiful.
You have nothing to lose, essentially, because you can do it and you could be in the same place as you were when you were doing nothing. So you really have nothing to lose.
What you're creating. At first, it is going to be your mom that's watching. We all are. We have all done that. Our moms came to our little tap dance shows when we were 5, and then, you know what I mean? So you have to start somewhere. You can't shame yourself because your mom came and nobody else did. Like, your mom came, of course she did, you know? So it's just, we have to just get out of our own way. So we are our own worst, biggest roadblock. And Rachel, you are such an example of not being that, not allowing the fear of what if I fail to block you from going for it anyway. So thank you for being here. You're amazing. You're amazing. Thank you for inspiring the 5 people that are listening to this show currently. Actually, we did get great feedback. We watched our show. We have already gotten really, really amazing feedback. So I'm thrilled to give them even more by giving them you. So again, thank you for being here. So we'll put all these amazing things, these amazing, amazing things in the show notes. The last match, we'll put how they can get connected with you, how they can get connected with Hunter and what he's doing. So many rich, rich opportunities for people to get involved with what you're building. Thank you so much. We love you.
Lots of juicy stuff. Thank you for sharing.
Yay.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.